Okay, welcome back to my channel. My name is Span, and this last 2 weeks I have read 2 books. Why is this so hard today? One day I'll learn to film when you can't hear the city out the window. I should do this. I have recently read The Book Ninja by Michelle Kellis and Ali Berg, and also Words in Deep Blue by Kath Crowley. I have decided to review these as a book versus book because they are very, very similar. You know me, you know I hate to leave a bad review. However, these 2 books are similar enough that I want to compare them to each other, but they're also leagues and leagues apart. I really loved one of them and thought the other one was kind of average. I want to start off by saying it wasn't bad. Sort of high expectations. I read it second after Words in Deep Blue. I quite enjoyed it. However, there were a lot of things I didn't like. But things that I did like were the premise, the storyline, and the love of books that is very clear throughout this novel. So basically the plot is that there's this main character named Frankston. She is out of sorts writer who stopped writing because she got a whole bunch of bad reviews. So hopefully, you know, that's not too much of an issue. She works in a bookshop. She used to be a writer and she wants romance in her life again, but she's out of touch. So she has to catch a train to get to work every day. She lives in Melbourne. Her and her best friend Kat come up with this plan that she's going to write a little love note in a book that says something like, glad you like the inspiration in this book, call me Love Charlotte. Scarlett O'Hara. There's just so many references in this book as well to other books, which I'm not sure did the book any favours, because instead of making me feel intense love for this book, it made me feel more love for the books that she was referencing and made me think, why wasn't I reading those instead? She sends out all of these books into the world by leaving them on the train with a love note and her phone number or email, and they get back to her. And she starts writing a blog about that, but meanwhile she finds herself falling for somebody else, Sunny, who likes YA, and she is a bit of a book snob, and by bit I mean a lot, and she doesn't like it. That's the premise of the story basically, and then the plot goes from there. It took me about 180 pages to finally get used to the characters and start enjoying their company, which was a bit too much. I didn't like them at first. I found Frank to be annoying, and just the way that she would do things was not at all the way I would do things. Like, I'm also a great book nerd and I would love to be a published author and all of that, but we have very different personalities other than that. She has a lot of confidence that I didn't, and I just found that she was doing things that were completely unrelatable to me. After I finally got into the characters and started liking them, I didn't really need to know what was happening in the love story until page 288. By then, I was like, yes, I need to know what happens. I really want to know what's up with Sunny. I need to read this. That's 288 pages of me not being invested in the story. And let me just see how many pages the whole story has. 336. It's a big book. It did not need to be this big at all. There was too much happening. Like the whole thing with the turtle, I did not appreciate that at all. Like, it's a small part of the book, but it didn't need to be there. I felt like it was trying too hard to be quirky. I think it boils down to writing style. I didn't like its writing style, and that kind of put the whole thing off edge for me. Like, the voice wasn't right in my head, if that makes sense. I did at one point think that it could have been written as 2 different novels, the love story with Sunny and then separately the blog and the book dates. But then finally at the end, like 300 pages in, the story started to intertwine more together, and I see why it was all one book and how it fit together, and I quite liked the ending, which was nice, but it just took so long to get there. I feel like this book should have been half this length. Oh, and the date that turned out to be a woman, like as if that was the worst thing on earth that could happen. It irritated me. It was trying too hard to be funny and light, I think, and it lacked a certain depth, but at the same time that made it... No, it didn't. It didn't make it lighter and happier. There were some sad parts in there. They were kind of unwarranted. Like, it lacked depth for me. I found it very shallow. So that's the book Ninja. And that was supposed to be a quick summary and it took 10 minutes. So this should be fun to edit later. Okay, so the next book was Words in Deep Blue by Kath Crawley. Now, ironically, I sort of feel like this is the YA version of the book Ninja. It feels like all of the authors got together and had a brainstorming session and then wrote these two books as a result of that day. This book is about some book lovers in a bookshop, much like this book is about some book lovers in a bookshop. I love the premise of this book as well. It's a love story, but it's also about grief and finding yourself after losing someone close to you. And it's about how grief can come in different forms, and I felt that really close to me. So I guess that might be also why I liked it. Basic premise and plot of this book is that there's these two friends that one has unrequited love crush on the other, goes to make a big gesture, it fails, she moves away, she has some horrible things happen in her life, and it's like 4 years later and she comes back to the city and they're grown-ups and they meet up again and she starts working in his bookstore and then the love story happens there. And it's about getting to know each other again after being such intense friendship to having nothing for 4 years and then working out who they are now after that separation from each other. So this book was written from two perspectives, from both sides of the love interest, and I really enjoyed that. I fell in love with the characters straight away. I related to them. The actions they were doing were things that I could see myself doing. I found it relatable and I loved the voice. I thought it was written very well, and also the descriptions in this, it really set the place and the setting really well. I highly enjoyed the way that the voice sounded in my head. I think for style of book, this one wins hands down, very much my style. Also, this book does the same thing as the book Ninja in that it has other quotes from other literature, so it has, I think, poetry mostly, and the way it's set out is beautiful too, because at the beginning of each chapter it's got a quote that's circled, but the quote is from this book, not from a different book. So then when you see it in the text, it highlights itself for you in your mind. You're like, oh, that's an intense set of meaning. And I really enjoyed that. So the book Ninja told me how great writing is and how much the character needed it to survive, but Words in Deep Blue showed me that. It underlined itself in its own text. And in their bookshop that they had this section of all these secondhand books that had notes scribbled from one another to it, which was reminiscent of this one with the trains, but in a bookshop. So there are a lot of similarities between these two. This one, the characters were about 29, and in this one, the characters were about 19, so there was a 10 years age difference. But I felt these people were stronger. Characteristically, I thought they were stronger people and that they had their lives more, well, their personalities more together really, whereas this one, everyone was sort of finding themselves still and they all felt very forced. I'm not sure why it felt forced, but it did, whereas this one felt authentic. That's a very hard thing to describe the difference between them. Like, what makes this book so much better than this one? And for me, I think it's literally just the voice, just the writing style. Love the story, love it, love it, love it. Conceptually, perfect book. This book, conceptually, probably not my favourite thing in the world, but reading it was a much better experience than this one for me. It's just really interesting to read them back to back and then they compare to each other. I think I'm done. Alright, thank you so much for watching my video. If you have read either of these, or both of them, let's talk about it below. I really liked the blog aspect in this one because I'm writing a blog as well, so it's not about my love life at all, it's about writing, and you can head over there and check it out if you like. It's called Manic Pixie Dream Boots. Yeah, so conceptually and plot-wise, this book is far superior. Writing style and lovable characters, this book, far superior. I like them both in different ways, for different reasons. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on Friday with a vlog. How do you turn this thing off?